Jake sat alone in his office late into the night. The city skyline glittered through the expansive windows behind him, but he barely noticed. The stack of papers Karina had left sat on his desk, staring back at him like an accusation. His fingers traced the edge of the envelope, his jaw tightening as memories of Karina flooded his mind. Her laughter, the way her nose crinkled when she was annoyed, the quiet strength she exuded even in her darkest moments. He remembered it all, and he had destroyed it. He pushed back his chair, rising abruptly. Pacing across the room, he ran a hand through his hair, his frustration bubbling over. Why had it come to this? Why had he allowed it? The answer was simple. He hadn't had a choice, or so he told himself. His parents had made their stance clear years ago. They had tolerated Karina as his secretary, a quiet presence in his life, but when whispers of their secret marriage had reached them, the true depth of their cruelty had emerged. His father had delivered the threat with chilling calm. "End it with her, Jake," he'd said, sitting behind his desk like a king on a throne. "Or I will." Jake had known better than to question what his father meant. The Eldridge family was powerful, but his father's reach was longer. His mother's cold, clipped tone had sealed the ultimatum. Lily is a perfect match. She understands our world. Karina is nothing but a liability. He had tried to fight them, pleaded with them to leave Karina alone, but every argument was met with steely resolve. "She will disappear, Jake," his father had said, his voice deadly quiet. "Do you want that?" And so, Jake had made his decision. He had chosen to push Karina away, to protect her the only way he knew how. It was a choice that had torn him apart every day since. The sound of his phone vibrating broke the silence. He glanced at the screen. Lily. He ignored the call, letting it buzz incessantly before stopping. The sight of her name made his stomach churn. She had been his parents' perfect pawn, an unrelenting force in his life. Jake returned to his desk, his eyes falling on the letter Karina had left. He unfolded it slowly, his hands trembling. Her words were simple, devoid of bitterness, but they cut him deeper than anything his parents or Lily ever could. "By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I won't burden you with words about love or betrayal. I only hope you find what you're looking for, even if it was never me." He closed his eyes. He hadn't just failed Karina as a husband. He had betrayed her trust in the most unforgivable way. But what could he do now? If he reached out, if he tried to bring her back, he would be putting her in danger. His parents wouldn't hesitate to act if they felt threatened. The papers sat before him, signed and final. He would never stop loving Karina, and he would never forgive himself for losing her. He stared out at the city below, his reflection in the glass a shadow of the man he used to be. The morning sun bathed the sprawling Eldridge estate in a warm, golden glow. The grand halls, once filled with memories of her childhood, now bore the signs of a thriving businesswoman's influence. Karina walked through them with a quiet confidence, her tailored suit accentuating her poised demeanor. In her home office, sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a desk cluttered with contracts and blueprints. Karina reviewed a stack of proposals, her pen darting across the pages with practiced precision. "Mommy!" A young boy's voice rang out, shattering the quiet focus of her work. Karina turned, her face softening as her 3-year-old son bounded into the room. His dark hair was a mess of unruly waves, and his bright green eyes sparkled with joy, eyes that mirrored Jake's so closely, it still took her breath away. "Yes, sweetheart?" Karina asked, crouching to catch him as he ran into her arms. "Grandpa said I can ride the pony today," he exclaimed, his small hands clutching hers excitedly. Karina ruffling his hair. "Did he now? Well, let's make sure you're ready then." The boy grinned before running back toward the door, calling for his grandfather. Karina watched him go, her heart swelling with a mix of love and bittersweet memories. Her son was the anchor that had pulled her through the darkest days. She had named him Leo, a nod to strength and courage, qualities she hoped he would carry. Her father appeared moments later, carrying a small riding helmet. "You're spoiling him," Karina teased as he helped Leo put it on. Her father smiled, a glint of pride in his eyes. "That's my job as a grandfather." He turned to Karina, his expression softening. "You've done well, Karina, better than I ever imagined." Karina's gaze dropped briefly to the ring on her finger. It was simple, unassuming, and deliberately ambiguous. People speculated about her relationship status, but Karina never confirmed or denied anything. The truth was more complex than anyone knew. Her life now was a stark contrast to the one she'd left behind. As the head of her family's new venture into sustainable industries, she had built a name for herself beyond the shadow of her parents' wealth. Yet, despite her success Nevertheless, a part of her heart remained unresolved, a quiet ache she had buried deep but couldn't completely silence. Karina glanced out the window, watching Leo and her father in the garden. The boys' laughter filled the air, a bright counterpoint to her introspective mood. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she could face them. After all, she had already survived the worst. Her phone buzzed on the desk, pulling her back to the present. Karina's eyes narrowed slightly. It was more than just another event. It was an opportunity to show the world what she had become, and perhaps an opportunity to confront the ghosts of her past. She set the phone down and turned back to the window, watching her son's carefree play. The future was hers to shape, and she wasn't going to let anything, or anyone, hold her back. The grand ballroom of the Eldridge estate was a masterpiece of opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, casting warm light on the polished marble floors and the elegantly dressed guests milling about. Soft classical music played in the background, the lilting melody weaving through the hum of conversations and clinking glasses. Jake entered the room, his sharp suit fitting him like a second skin. He exuded confidence, but inside, he was anything but. He had dreaded this night, knowing it meant coming face to face with the past he had tried and failed to leave behind. He spotted her almost immediately. Karina stood near a grand staircase, her presence commanding, yet effortlessly graceful. She wore a deep emerald gown that shimmered under the chandeliers, the colour accentuating her glowing skin and the poise she had always carried so naturally. But there was something new about her, an air of authority, a self-assuredness he hadn't seen before. Jake's breath caught as his eyes drifted to the small boy standing beside her. The child was laughing, his dark hair tousled and his green eyes, Jake's green eyes, dancing with mischief. The sight knocked the air out of him. "Karina," he whispered under his breath, frozen in place. He couldn't tear his gaze away. The boy was a mirror of himself at that age. There was no denying it. He was Jake's son. As if sensing his presence, Karina's gaze shifted, her eyes locked with Jake's, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. Her expression was unreadable, her polished smile never faltering. She placed a protective hand on her son's shoulder and turned back to the man she had been speaking with. Jake's jaw tightened as he recognized him. Evan Harrington. Tall, charming, and infuriatingly familiar. Evan leaned closer to Karina, whispering something that made her laugh softly. The sound was like a dagger to Jake's chest. He crossed the room in long strides, his focus narrowing on Karina. The noise of the ballroom faded into the background as his jealousy and frustration flared. "Karina," Jake said, his voice cutting through the polite conversations around them. She turned, her expression carefully composed. "Mr. Harrington," she said smoothly, addressing Evan first. "This is Jake Harrington, CEO of Global Enterprises." Evan extended a hand toward Jake, his smile easy and nonchalant. "Casual. Pleasure to meet you. I'm Evan, Karina's fiancé." Jake ignored the hand, his eyes locked on Karina. Coldly. "Fiancé," he repeated, his voice colder than he intended. Karina raised an eyebrow, her expression calm. Calmly, "Yes, Evan and I are engaged." Her hand rested lightly on Evan's arm, a gesture that felt deliberate, pointed. "What brings you here, Jake?" Her question was polite, but the sharp edge beneath her words was unmistakable. Jake struggled to form a response, his mind spinning as he tried to process the scene before him. And yet, his eyes drifted back to the boy, who was now watching him curiously. The boy's resemblance to Jake was undeniable, and the realization hit him like a tidal wave. This was his son, his blood, his legacy, and he had never known. Jake swallowed hard, his carefully constructed facade beginning to crack. He hadn't just lost Karina, he had lost far more than he could have ever imagined.